This Thursday, May 16th, NBA Playoffs Betting Predictions edition of the NBA Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Underdog is offering plenty of markets this week for the PGA Championship that you can't find anywhere else. Sign up with promo code NBA SGPN to claim your special pick and first-time deposit offer up to $250 in bonus cash. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com and make sure that promo code NBA SGPN. Welcome, everyone, to the NBA Gambling Podcast, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It is Thursday, May the 16th, here to get into the solo game on Thursday night. We'll also recap what we saw in the NBA playoffs on Wednesday night. Joining me here to help me break everything down in the association, you guys know him as the voice of the Tennis Gambling Podcast, WNBA, MLB, and of course here on the NBA Gambling Podcast, Scott Studio Reichel. Scott, what's going on, my man? How you doing?
Yeah, doing pretty well. Games yesterday were kind of competitive for a little while, but they both resulted in double-digit wins, so not the most competitive slate, but either way, I can't complain too much. As for the picks, not the greatest. Ended up losing with Horford PRA, who had himself, I don't know, a game from like 2012, who turned the clock back, but 12 straight under PRAs. I'm not going to overreact to one good game, but either way, the run was fun while it lasted. And then for the dog, Kyrie did not get any just didn't get any assists. He ended up with 4, had the 7.5. That didn't get there. Overall, I had Dallas to win the game. I thought that the over in the Celtics play was a solid option, and that got there. Pretty interesting sweat there for the Cavs and Celtics spread, because that actually came down to the wire. I believe the Celtics covered the initial line and then failed to cover the late line. I think that's how that ended up unfolding. But yeah, overall, just an interesting day in the NBA, and hopefully the game tonight is even more interesting.
Yeah, Boston getting it done. I mean, not in convincing fashion, but I honestly thought they would have won that game by 20 plus points. But give credit to Cleveland, especially in the first half there, Scott, for at least hanging around, making it interesting, but eventually, and honestly, it was like late in the fourth quarter as well, where Boston really pulled away, like you mentioned. It was a couple of Al Horford 3-point shots, a couple of Drew Holiday easy baskets under the rim that created that separation and got them the 15-point victory last night. So they take care of the series in 5 games. I think as most of us predicted that Cleveland would get at least one game, and there would be that one game that Boston always fumbles away or isn't as focused, and the other team just gets hot. And Cleveland did that in game 2, but then Boston takes care of business, still advance to the Eastern Conference Finals as they will await the winner of the series between the Knicks and the Pacers. But Evan Mobley had his best game of his playoff career last night, 43 minutes, 15 of 24 from the floor, 33.7 rebounds, did have 2 blocks and a steal. Darius Garland just mightily struggled last night. I did have his points prop to go over. Thought the handicap
4 of 17.
Yeah, 4 of 17, 0 of 4 from 3-point land, 11 points only. Did have 9 assists in the game, did have 2 steals, but just very, very inefficient from the floor. Marcus, speaking of turning back the clock, Marcus Morris turning back the clock yesterday as well for the Cavs. He finished up with 25 points, 10 of 13 from the floor, 5 of 6 from 3-point land, and all 5 starters for the Boston Celtics were in double figures last night. Congrats to Jason Tatum for hitting three-pointers last night. He was going under 3. It was like 12 straight games, Scott, for Jason Tatum. Under 2.5 3-pointers made. Did fall 1 assist short of a triple-double, but lo and behold, Boston does get it done. And then, like you mentioned, Dallas goes into Oklahoma City Thunder. And I think we're all kind of waiting for that Luka game. I know he's been dealing with the ankle/knee injury throughout the season and mostly in the postseason, but finally had an efficient night, we can say, for Luka. 41 minutes, 12 of 22 from the floor, did hit 5 3-pointers, finished up with another triple-double, 31 points, 10 rebounds, 11 assists for Luka. But yeah, they take care of business, did a really good job defensively, held the OKC Thunder to 92 points. They'll head back to Dallas for game 6, which I believe is Friday night, I believe. and looking to close the series out to advance to the Western Conference Finals. That game is actually on Saturday. I misspoke for Dallas and OKC, but yeah, I guess uneventful night last night. Anything else you want to get off your chest from last night?
Yeah, I think if I was going to touch upon a few things, first of all, congrats, Evan Mobley. You learned that you have to actually shoot the damn ball more. It took half the team dying, but you finally figured out you have to be more aggressive offensively. So hopefully that carries over into next season when Mitchell's probably not there. Besides that, there were some, I think, reports from The Athletic with Shams about how Bickerstaff was having some issues with like the Cavaliers and how they might move on. Is this the new thing? You just wait until your team gets eliminated and then everybody comes out and says how awful the coach was? Is this like the new thing where there's like a media dump on the coach? Because I'm not a Bickerstaff guy. I never was, even when he got the job. Having said that, what the hell was he supposed to do in the series? He lost in 5. 3
Yeah.
of his best 6 players didn't play yesterday. What was he supposed to do? Like, I don't know. I'm not a Bickerstaff guy, but I can't go into the series and say it's his fault they lost. Boston was viewed as being the best team in this conference by a wide margin.
Mhm.
Cleveland was, I don't want to say fortunate to win in 7 against Orlando. So that might be why people are kind of anti-Bickerstaff. But he went into the series. They were competitive when they were missing a bunch of guys, and they lost in 5. They won a game. Like, I can't criticize Bickerstaff for really anything in this series because I don't know what good coach would have won more than 1 or 2 games in the series. Like, they were just outmatched from the start to finish, and Mitchell missed the last couple games. Jared Allen didn't play. He didn't even play in games, 6 and 7 in the previous series? Like, I don't know why this is the new thing where no matter what your thoughts are on the actual coach, as soon as your season's over, everyone keeps their mouth shut. And then once you lose, you get a bunch of reports coming out about how everyone hated this guy for the last 4 months. I don't know. It just seems a little
Yeah,
bush league.
it is, and again, it's easy to blame the head coach um, for a team's lack of success. But when you, like you mentioned, when you truly look at it, um, Cleveland were, like you mentioned, they were without 3 other top 5 guys.
Well, top
In
6 if you want to include LeVert in there.
Yeah, Karis LeVert, Donovan Mitchell for 2 games, Jared Allen for the entire series as well. I think they're gonna have to move on from Jared Allen because we've seen what Evan Mobley can do without Jared Allen on the floor. And I think that's something they do want to build around, right? But I think it's. Do you think Cleveland did a better job being competitive in this series than Miami did in the last series? Because it's pretty much the same movie.
I mean, if I had to go by scores, I'd say yes.
But even with the available bodies, I mean, none of
Yeah,
them didn't have Jimmy Butler, but I
that's kind of
mean,
the difference there is that
yeah,
Butler played in none of the games,
yeah,
and therefore you can make the argument that Cleveland was healthier than Miami barely in the series. But I don't know, like it just feels a little bit scummy to me that you're just going to wait until the season's officially over. You've no rumblings of anything, and then as soon as it's over, oh, by the way, we've hated this guy for 5 months, and it's like,
yeah,
what the hell is what is happening?
yeah,
And the Athletic was just ready to roll. They just had a full-on piece ready to roll, for the first 5 minutes after elimination. It just felt extremely, I don't know, weird and scummy in that way. So that was my main
yeah,
takeaway from the Cavs series. I got nothing else to talk about for them. I mean, the whole team got injured. There's nothing else to
yeah,
talk about. To go through the Thunder game, I picked the Mavericks. I just thought that the series was really competitive and close between these two teams, so I was going to take the points just blindly. I just thought that 4.5 was a bit too large of a spread. Assuming Dallas could hit free throws, they would be winning the series, and
yeah,
they missed a bunch of free throws the game prior. I was hoping that would balance out, and you saw OKC's offense look not that good because Shea is doing everything, and Jalen Williams has been underwhelming. Chet's been a bit underwhelming, and nobody else has really shown up. So they benched Giddey, and that didn't really matter that much. So, yeah, the problem is OKC supporting cast is not really showing up, and Dallas once again had a lackluster game from Kyrie yesterday, and it
yeah,
didn't matter because Luka was just that good. He has a 30-point triple double, and Lively had a double double as well off the bench. So, a couple guys stepped up, but it was mostly Dallas's defense. I just thought Dallas did a great job of being physical. They did a great job of preventing Shea from getting constant access to the paint. They kind of turned OKC into a jump shooting team, and
yeah.
OKC last night was not very good at hitting jump shots, and that was the
No.
story of the game.
It's interesting because I believe OKC from a team shooting perspective from beyond the arc, I believe they were number one as far as team percentage from beyond the arc from 3-point land, and they just weren't able to make any shots. Honestly, throughout the course of the series, and I think
Mhm.
I think it was Grant Hill that was on the game last night, if I'm not mistaken, but he said that Jason Kidd is now daring the OKC Thunder to make threes, and they just weren't able to. And you're right; it's been SGA, and it's somebody hoping that that steps up. And Jalen Williams, the starter at least, has been very underwhelming as well. I thought he would be having a better series as well, but right now, we're kind of waiting for that Luka efficient game, and I think we got that in Game 5, and maybe Game 6 is time for Kyrie, because when we talk about the series, especially in round one for Kyrie, he was absolutely dominant against the Clippers. So maybe that game is for Game 6 for them to close it out at home on Saturday night for the Dallas Mavericks. So we'll see if they can do that on Saturday. All right, Scott. I know we only have one game here for the Thursday night schedule, but before we get into that, let me tell everyone about your podcast, the WNBA Gambling Podcast. The season tipped off this week, and we have games all throughout the week. So you make sure you guys check out Scott and Terrell over on the WNBA Gambling Podcast. I know the NBA season is winding down, but the WNBA season is just getting started. Plus, did you know you get every single podcast SGPN releases all in one place? Just smash the SGPN network feed wherever you listen to your podcast. And guess what's this weekend? That is going to be the Preakness. And that's where our newest sponsor on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, Naira. Bet the second jewel of the Triple Crown with Naira Bets. Sign up today for a $200 deposit bonus with promo code SGPN200. Join now to claim your $200 deposit bonus just in time for the Preakness at nyrabets.com/SGPN200. Get ready for nonstop action with Naira Bets evening promotions. Bet $50 each on Belmont at the Big A and any track with a first post at 6 p.m. Eastern Time on Friday for a $10 bonus, win or lose. And if you need more, earn a $15 bonus, win or lose, when you bet at least $75 each at Belmont at the Big A or Monmouth Park. Visit nyrabets.com to opt in. And that's not all. Score big with a 20% bonus on your ticket winnings by hitting an exacta on any or all races at Belmont at the Big A on Sunday. Feed your competitive edge with live money handicapping contests nearly every week. Enter the Friday Feeder contest to earn your entry into the next $300 contest. Plus, win cash prizes and seats into next week's contest with Naira's Bet Saturday contest. Registration closes before the Belmont at the Big A third post race time on the day of each contest. Get in and get your bonuses at nyrabets.com/SGPN200. Again, that's nyrabets.com/SGPN200. And we're also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. The NBA playoffs are here, and our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy, wants to make it a lot more interesting. Underdog is the easiest place to play fantasy sports. Playing their pick'em game is as simple as selecting higher or lower on player stats like points, rebounds, assists, and so much more. Make entries of all basketball or mix and match across your other favorite sports. You can win up to 100 times your money, and it's a ton of fun. Stay tuned at the end of the episode. Scott and I will put together our Underdog Fantasy entry here for tonight. And Underdog is available in 30 plus states, including California, Texas, and Canada. They just launched Champions, their player versus player format in Florida. Sign up with promo code NBA SGPN to claim your special pick plus first deposit bonus offer up to $250 in bonus cash. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Make sure that you guys use that promo code NBA SGPN. All right, Scott, let's get into it, man. We've got one game here tonight, Game 6 in Minnesota. The Denver Nuggets looking to close out this series and advance to their second straight. So their second straight or third straight Western Conference Finals. Obviously, they were last year and went on to win the NBA championship. But we know about this series. The series started 2-0 in favor of the Minnesota Timberwolves. Denver makes their adjustments. They have now won 3 straight games. and now they're looking to close it out in Minnesota. Currently, as it stands here, Scott, T-Wolves favored by 2 points with a total of 205 in this game. And looking at the injury report, I do see for the Minnesota Timberwolves that Mike Conley is officially listed as questionable. He is dealing with the same calf injury that Giannis and Porzingis were dealing with as well. Jamal Murray is on the injury report with the left calf strain, but we do expect him to be out there for this Denver Nuggets team. Scott, is the series over tonight, or does Minnesota push this to 7 games?
I think it's over. If I had to predict how I think this game's going to unfold, Minnesota, I feel like the only thing going for Minnesota right now, according to bettors, is, well, maybe Denver overlooks this game. And Minnesota's going to come out focused after getting buried in Game 5. And I feel like that's a pretty just weak handicap because as the series has gone on, Minnesota's had a less and less answers for Joker. And I just feel like Minnesota, who prides itself on being a defensive team, has gotten their asses kicked. Like, I just don't know how I'm supposed to fully assume Minnesota is going to, as a younger team, I guess, is trying to bounce back, potentially without Mike Conley, after how these 3 games have unfolded, because Denver has been phenomenal over the last 3 games. We saw the first 2 games, Denver got smacked. You ended up seeing Jamal Murray look injured, and he also kind of had a mental breakdown as he threw something on the court. But after the layoff between game 2 and 3, Murray's been incredible. And I feel like with him being healthy, that's opened up a lot of other stuff for the offense. Aaron Gordon's been great too. I don't know what happened there. He just learned how to shoot a jump shot. But the point is, Denver is clicking. And that's why I can't really ignore the first 2 games. But with Murray being fully healthy, I kind of have to ignore the first 2 games of the series because Denver's a completely different team when Murray can actually, help space the floor and help really just dominate with the pick and roll with Jokic. And it just seems like once Murray got healthy again, everything else clicked back into place. And Joker, whether he's being matched up against the defensive player of the year or whether it involves Cat or Reed or really whoever the hell they want to put on him, the guy had 47, 13 with 0 turnovers in the last game. Like, I can't ignore that. It just feels like Joker, the longer the series goes on, the best players will figure out a defense and really just become unguardable. And Joker, for the last 3 games, has become unguardable, especially in Game 5. I don't see that suddenly changing. I don't know what Minnesota's supposed to do besides hoping that Ant is going to have a monster 40-piece and they can get enough from the others to get the job done. But Minnesota going into the postseason, I know I called them frauds. I was a bit too harsh. I'll apologize there. But the main reason why I was anti-Minnesota, I did not think their offense was that good. That was my main issue with this team. I did not think the supporting cast was reliable enough. Cat's actually had better games, or I'd say a decent amount of good games in the postseason, more than I thought he would. But we would all agree Cat is easily able to take himself out of games, and that's why I can't trust him, because his decision-making sucks. Gobert, we know, is an offensive talent. He can get you a bunch of dunks, and he can get you some putbacks. That's basically it. That's all he can do. So I'm trying to think of like what Minnesota's options are. And I'm not the biggest Mike Conley guy, but he's been really effective with this team as a veteran leader. And he also shot 44+% from 3. And he's an Achilles injury, which I think means he's not going to play. We'll see what happens, but I don't know if he can move out there. So I don't know if he's going to play. And he's a very solid like stabilizer for this team. But the point is, Denver has just taken over this series. Denver has become unguardable. Minnesota's defense has looked 2 steps behind for the last 2-3 games. And offensively, they're not very good. They scored less than 98 points in 2 of the last 3 games. So I just don't see many paths for Minnesota to win. They need an Ant masterclass and a great defensive effort against one of the best offensive players of all time. And I just don't see both happening. And you can argue that it's in Minnesota. The crowd's going to be into it. I don't care. Denver won the first 2 games on the road this series anyway. They've won 3 of the first 4 road games that they've had by 7+ points, including the Lakers series. So I don't see many paths for Minnesota here. I just think Denver's the experienced team. They've cracked the Minnesota defensive code, and I don't see many backup plans for Minnesota. I'm taking Denver in this game.
Yeah, I'm there with you on Denver here as well. I mean, you mentioned the masterclass game for Anthony Edwards. He had that in game 4. They still ended up losing the game where he scored 44 points, right? But again, I mentioned this before that Mike Malone has made the adjustments over the last 3 games for this Denver Nuggets team, and their offense has looked really good. Right? You take a look at the first 2 games of the series, where they only scored 80 and 99 points respectively. But since for the 3 games what they won, they've scored at least 112 points. Have the Denver Nuggets, so they figured out offensively. Um, have the Denver Nuggets, since everything that you mentioned as well, that Denver has a lot more scoring options, I believe, and guys that I do believe that can step up and knock down shots versus guys from Minnesota, right? And I think when we talked about the series at the beginning, now we knew Anthony Edwards was going to do Anthony Edwards thing, but somebody else outside of him, in particular, Cat, was going to have to step up. He did that in games 1 and 2. Excuse me. He had a good game 5 as well. Did Karl Anthony Towns, but he just has been consistent. And outside of that, they just have to hope that somebody else steps up. But I think Anthony Edwards does another great game. I just don't think it's going to be enough for this for this Minnesota Timberwolves team. So I'm on Denver here plus the 2 money line here as well for them to get it done and advance to the Western Conference Finals here. And again, you can look at this Denver Nuggets team, right? They don't have an answer for Nikola Jokic. And even if they did, Jamal Murray, like you mentioned, has stepped up since game 2's defeat. He's looked really good. You've seen flashes of Michael Porter Jr. I mean, he can go out there on any given night and knock down 5 3-point shots for you. KCP can continue contribute defensively and knock down a couple shots for you as well. And they've actually had a couple guys coming off of the bench that have contributed for this team. And I know Michael Porter Jr. over the last 2 games has not been very good. And I think that's just a bad sign for Minnesota, because there might be a game in particular, probably tonight, where he's going to be knocking down that 3-point shot, because the last 2 games, he's only been 2 of 9 from 3 on the arc. So I just think that's a lot of trouble for the Minnesota Timberwolves here. So yeah, I'll take Denver here with you. Plus the 2. I'm going to be on the money line here as well. I do think they wrap up the series here tonight. Do you have any thoughts on the total here at 205?
I really don't, because I do expect a better effort from Minnesota. I'm not sure they actually just have the answers, besides hoping Joker isn't as good in the following game, which is a very dangerous option. But I'm trying to think of how Minnesota's supposed to get stops here. Gobert should never be allowed to guard Joker ever again if you're Minnesota, because that's just not going to work out. So, yeah, I'm trying to figure out how they're supposed to guard this guy. You're going to throw Cat on him and just hope he doesn't get into foul trouble again? Like, I don't know what you're supposed to do, because Reed comes off the bench. He's not going to start, and you're not going to use all 3 big men at the same time. So I'm trying to think of what Minnesota's answers are going to be, besides just letting, I guess, Joker try to go nuts and just hope Ant matches him, because Denver was very active with doubling him, and they were trapping a lot, and they said to Minnesota supporting cast, "We're not any good." And Minnesota supporting cast said, "You're right. We're actually really bad at basketball, and nobody can hit a shot." So I don't know what they're supposed to do here. I just feel like Minnesota is outmatched, and Conley gives them some floor spacing and also just gives them some overall stability as a veteran leader. He's been around the block a few times, and with him potentially not being there, it's a pretty big loss for this Minnesota team. So, yeah, I just don't know what the actual path is for Minnesota, besides hoping that Joker or some other guys just have off nights, and hoping that Ant drops a 35-point masterclass, because Minnesota has proven over the last couple of games this team cannot score against Denver's defense. And Denver's defense has been very underrated so far in the playoffs. They've been very good. And I feel like that Minnesota gave Denver their best shot. Denver brushed it off. They showcased another gear, and I don't think Minnesota has that gear. Now, we could talk about what roster moves they need to make, but I think we should save that for the offseason once they get eliminated or once the playoffs are actually over. But it just feels to me like Minnesota had one really good boxing round in them, but it's a 12-round fight, and the champion kind of figured out how to take over. That's kind of how it feels like to me.
Yeah, I think that, like you mentioned, that even if Anthony Edwards is able to match Nikola Jokic, I trust the supporting cast and the options for Denver a whole heck of a lot more than Minnesota. I think that's frankly what it just really comes down to. I think Minnesota, like you mentioned, we'll talk about in the offseason what moves they do need to make to improve this roster. Because again, when you have a player like Anthony Edwards, who I think can be an MVP in this league at some point in his career and lead this league in being a scoring champion, that's the type of guy you want to build around. for the Minnesota Timberwolves. But yeah, I didn't have much for the total either. I think if you want to look at something, maybe a Denver Nuggets team total, just because they figured out offensively and they've been able to score at least 112 points over the last 3 games. And I think that they made that adjustment here. I mean, that number tonight is going to be what, 106 probably. Let me just double check here.
Well, Denver's an underdog, so it's probably going to be like 1.
Oh yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. 101.5
Yeah,
for
yeah.
Denver. So yeah, I think that's worth a look here
I
tonight
like
for
the
sure.
over on that. I would probably lean over in the game because Edwards was that bad in game 5 that you're kind of just hoping that he can figure out how to deal with Denver's new defensive schemes, which
Yeah.
should result in Minnesota playing better offensively. I'll lean
Mhm.
over if I had to pick. I just think this total's too low. I know it was a very good under series to start. It's been a bit more of an over series recently, so it doesn't feel like the odds makers have fully adjusted to that. I'd say, I don't say changing of the guard, but just the overall difference between the totals in the first couple games compared to the totals in the last 3. So I'll lean over. Denver team total over does look really good at 101.5, but
Yep.
I just once again think that Minnesota needs the game to go one way if they're going to win, or maybe one of 2 ways. The other way being Cat has a monster game, which might be a
Yeah.
little bit unlikely, but that's another option. Denver currently win in a variety of ways because of how good Joker actually is. Joker can have a 35-point masterclass, or he could have an 18-point masterclass with 12 assists and 15 rebounds. Like, he can win games in such a variety of ways because of how easily he's able to dissect defensive coverages and how easily he's able to make his teammates better. Joker gives the team so much fluidity offensively that anybody can step up at any time because Joker will automatically get his team better shots than the rest of the league. Minnesota doesn't have that. Minnesota needs Ant to take over in isolation, needs Ant to be aggressive all the time. Denver just has more variety offensively, and I think that's going to be the story of this game. So I'm going to lean to Denver, and I'm going to lean to the over and the Denver team total over. I know some of us want 7, but I do want to ask you, does home court really matter if you have not defended home court in the series yet? Because I don't think it matters.
And only one team has won a home game in this series, and that was game 5 for Denver, right? So I think now, I mean, I really don't think it matters. I think that if you like Minnesota here tonight, you also like the under, because I don't see them getting into a shootout here
Yeah.
per se against Denver and scoring a whole lot of points. It would have to be something similar to what we saw in games 1 and game 2, where they really clamped down defensively and made things miserable for the Denver Nuggets. But again, like we talked about, Denver's made those adjustments over the last 3 games. And Mike Malone has said not only during the playoffs, guy, but also like during the regular season, he likes seeing his team play fast. And I think that's what they've really done. They've increased the pace over the last 3 games. I really think that's what's been the difference for Denver over the last 3 games at least. So I think that continues here tonight for Denver as well. All right, before we do get into the player props here for the game 6 between Denver and Minnesota, let me tell everyone about our friends over at Game Time. And look, maybe you want to get out to one of these events that's happening in your area, maybe an MLB game. It's just been a frustrating experience having to buy tickets from other outlets. But that's why Game Time is here. They're going to take all that stress away and all that frustration away from that ticket buying experience. Because also, if you're looking to get out to that MLB game, well, guess what? Game Time is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch, with killer last minute deals, all in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork away out of buying MLB tickets. I've used their app, and honestly, guys, it's so easy to use, and there's so many great features on there. They have last minute tickets that are available. They have flash deals. They have zone deals as well. It's easy to find and buy MLB tickets for also other events that are in your area. And you get views from all seats in the venue. Their lowest price guarantee. They also have event cancellation protection as well. And like I mentioned, last minute deals, right? You can save up to 60% buying last minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, and theater. They also have flash deals. Save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or the event. And they also have the all-in pricing. Toggling this feature shows the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. So there's a lot of other ticket venues or ticket outlets that wait to gouge you for those fees and extra charges at the end, and you're almost paying double the price of what you're seeing when you're looking for those tickets. And my favorite part, honestly, about the app is that you get that seat view. You get a panoramic view of your seat in the app before you actually buy the ticket, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive at that venue. Their lowest price guarantee or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code SGPN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code SGPN for $20 off. Download the Game Time app. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, Scott, let's get into the player props in this game if we do like anything here for tonight. You have any player props you're looking at?
Well, I feel like the question regarding Joker is what type of game is he going to have? Is he going to dominate with assists? Is he going to dominate with points? I would probably lean points. Minnesota historically has still done a good job at preventing assists. I know that did not work out well in Game 5, but Denver also made a lot of shots. So I am expecting that Joker's going to have another 30-piece in this game if I had to speculate. So I don't maybe mind the points there, 29.5. I'm assuming most people are expecting an Ant bounce back. I'm not sure if I actually want to bet on it, though, because I think with potentially Conley being out, Denver might keep doubling. I don't know why Denver would stop doubling, so I'm trying to think of what else I want. Can Gobert have a decent offensive game? Like, he was actually pretty good offensively last game, even though nobody really cared because they were trailing the entire way through. But I feel like if I was looking at a prop that I might be tempted by, I think I have to at least consider, I know it's going to sound sacrilegious for me to talk about it, but do I have to consider Reggie Jackson? Like
Oh
over
boy.
5.5 points, rebounds, and assists? I have to at least mention he's gone over in 6 straight games. I'm not a fan of his game, but he has gone over in 6 straight. It's 5.5. He's played some minutes recently. Let me just look at his actual playing time if I could find it. But yeah, Reggie Jackson actually might be undervalued, which I never thought I would say in my entire life. But he's been good. Just going to throw it out there. He's gone over in 6 straight games. 5.5 points, rebounds, and assists at -110. I think actually might be worth considering.
Yeah, I mean the minutes haven't been there, but when he's out there, he's making the most of it. He's gonna jack up the shots while he's out there. For
And whether you
the
like him or not, he plays.
yeah, um, yeah. I think that the I don't want to say the tricky part is, but what do we expect from Jokic here tonight? I think the one safe. I don't want to say safe, but I think the one that you can bank on or rely on with Jokic is that you know he's going to fill up the stat sheet, whether it's with whether it's point or whether it's with more consistently his assists and rebounds to go over. Has he recorded a triple double in the series? Did he have one in the last game, or did I think he
No,
fell an
he
assist
did
short?
not have the rebounds last game somehow. He only had 7
Okay,
rebounds in that game.
yeah. So I think if you want to look at Nikola Jokic's rebounds and assists to go over, it's at 20.5. I know he hasn't gone over this in 2 games. He had 14 in what was it, game 4, and then he was right on 20 on game 5. But prior to that, games 2 and 3, sorry, games, yeah, 2 and 3, he did, sorry, game 1 he didn't do it, game 2 he did, game 3 he did. So game 2, 16 rebounds, 8 assists, game 4, 14 rebounds and 9 assists for Nikola Jokic. So if you want to go with that, couldn't talk you off of that for Nikola Jokic. If you want to go PRA again, it's they just don't have an answer for him right now. Aaron Gordon has also been another great, consistent guy. He's really been the beneficiary of Nikola Jokic's assists. He's been able to find him under the basket for those easy layups or dunks, where you may want to call it. He was also shooting the ball effectively from beyond the arc prior to game 5, but he still got over his points prop. He's gone over 14.5 in 3 out of the last 4 games. The market has adjusted now up to 13.5 up to 14.5 for Aaron Gordon. So the shot volume I know is going to be there for him as well. If they are going to try to double Nikola Jokic, maybe that opens up opportunities for him. But yeah, that was I would look at. If again, like you mentioned, if Mike Conley doesn't play, Scott, they're probably going to send that double team to Anthony Edwards. But then at that point, like, do you pivot to Cat? Is it Nas Reed maybe coming off of the bench? He's at 9.5 points. It's just really tough to tell for the Minnesota Timberwolves vibe, because I know, at least for Denver, I know like what I'm going to expect out of Jokic and some of these other guys that we did talk about. So I really didn't have anything for Minnesota. I think that for Anthony Edwards, he's probably going to leave it out there on the floor because it is a win and go home situation for him. But I would be looking at Anthony Edwards' points prop to go over. I think he comes out aggressive. I think he sets the tone for Minnesota early on, at least. But then I think as the game progresses, then Denver just kind of flexes their muscle and just they're able to use the depth that they have on their team to really pull away in this game. But Anthony Edwards over 29.5, I'd be tempted by. You have anything else you like?
No, not really. I was trying to think if there was anything else I was tempted by, but it really just comes back to how Joker can manipulate defensive coverages and really just do whatever he wants on offense every time. So I feel like it's a spot where you're trying to predict exactly how Joker wants to destroy this defense when he can pick whichever way he wants to. So you're kind of trying to speculate if the supporting cast makes shots and you like Joker assists. If you think that Joker's going to drop 35, you like Joker points. But I feel like either way, Joker's going to dominate the game, and you have to guess which path he chooses. It's like a choose your own adventure game. Like, you don't really know. You're going to have to figure it out and hope for the best. But I feel like that's why it makes betting on Denver and their player prop so tricky, because you're picking certain guys to step up when they have a lot of options on how to beat you. And that's why, once again, I'm picking Denver to win the game. I just don't see Minnesota having that. I think Denver has that luxury, and Minnesota is forced into relying, whether it's, a solid strategy or not, they're forced to rely on Ant and pretty much Cat to do everything scoring-wise, because they really don't have many scoring options. And you can throw in Nas Reed off the bench as an option, but you get my point. They're pretty limited scoring-wise. So that kind of just goes back to the side, but for player props, it really doesn't help you that much.
All right. So side total and player props there. Anything else for the game overall, Scott, before we get to our picks?
Not really. I know some people are expecting most people, I think, are expecting Denver to win Game 6. But the one, I'd say, area of just handicapping that I do want to criticize that I've been seeing for Minnesota cases is Denver overlooking Game 6 because they have Game 7 at home. I just feel like, one, there's no actual evidence to support that's going to happen. Two, Denver's been around the block. They know that you can't really let teams hang around. They're the masters of the 3-1 comeback. We've seen that before in the bubble, especially.
Yeah.
I just feel like it's a lazy narrative. Like, it's a way of trying to find an angle for Minnesota. I don't think Denver's going to go into the game after what happened in the first two games in Denver and say, oh, yeah, the series is over. Like, we can just take a nap for this game. Like, I just feel like it's a lazy handicap. So I wanted to call that out. Now, am I saying that Minnesota is automatically going to lose this game? No. That's why you play the games. They're favored. So clearly, the odds makers expect Minnesota to give a much better effort in Game 6 than they did in Game 5. But the idea that Denver, who's a defending champion, who's been there before, is going to just roll over and basically punt the game because Minnesota needs it more, I think it's an extremely lazy narrative, and I wanted to bring it up.
Yeah, and again, as much as we want, like, as fans, like a Game 7 to watch,
Denver doesn't want to go to a Game 7 if they don't have to.
Exactly, right. So, I think because, like you mentioned, like, you're not going to leave this to chance if you're Denver. Like, your mentality is like, all right, we just got to get one of the next two games. No, let's get Game 6. Let's get that extra rest because we have guys, especially in Jamal Murray, who's dealing with that injury, right? And then let's just close it out. Let's get some extra rest, and we'll see what happens between Dallas and OKC. If they do go to a Game 7, they do. That's great for us. We get some more extra rest. If not, we'll be ready to play Dallas if they do close it out on Saturday against OKC. So, yeah, I just think that the championship pedigree that this team has developed over the last season and even prior when they were able to get to Western Conference Finals and things like that, I think they're going to shut the door here tonight as well. All right, Scott, let's get into our, lock and dog here for tonight, and then, or lock and prop, whatever you want to give out, and then we'll do our underdog fantasy entry here for tonight. You want to lead us off?
Sure. So for the lock on the show, I am kind of wondering if I want to go for the side because I might want to do an alt spread for the side. I think for this one, for the lock, I'm going to go with Denver team total over at 101.5. That line just feels insanely low. Just looking at how Denver's been offensively, they were really bad in the first 2 games. Even in the first game, by the way, they scored 99. And that game was a rock fight for about the first half. So I think Denver, over the last 3 games, has solved the puzzle of this defense. Forget scoring 102. They've scored 112 in each of the last 3 games. So Denver's offense has been rolling. You're looking at just how Minnesota has run out of answers. It really does give off, I don't want to say LeBron vibes back when he was with like Miami and Cleveland when they ended up winning the title. But if you give a top tier NBA player, the best player in the league, 7 games to figure out a defense, he's going to figure it out in like 3. And then at that point, you got to find a way to beat the best player in the world 4 times. It's just not going to happen. I just feel like Joker has taken this defense and he's analyzed it, he spit it out, and he came up with the answers. And I just don't think Minnesota's got any counters. So give me Denver's offense once again to have a solid game. They can win this game by scoring less than 101 in theory, but I just don't see that happening. I think Joker is going to be too efficient for the team to not score 102 plus. So give me Denver team total over 101.5 at -110 as my lock. For my dog, it is going to be an alt spread on Denver. Really wasn't feeling many player props in this game. So I think instead I'm going to pivot, and I am going to go with an alt spread here. So for the actual spread I'm going to go with, I just want to see the prices that I can find. I think Denver wins this game by 5+. They've won each. They're 3-1 on the road this postseason. They've won all 3 of those games by at least 7 points. So they have been winning by margin on the road. So that is at least, in my opinion, worth mentioning because that means that when they've been showcasing their skill on the road, they've actually been really refusing to take their foot off the gas, which I think is pretty important. So for the spread, I'm going to look for potentially 4.5 if I could find it. Let me just see what I can get.
Got plus 180 at DraftKings.
Yeah, I'll take that. Give me Denver -4.5 at plus 180 is my dog.
All right. For my lock, I will go with. Just gonna go with Denver, man. Plus the 2, 2.5. Now I see is up to. Again, we talked about it volumes. I think that they just closed it out here tonight. It's just too much firepower for Denver. They figured it out offensively. So I'll take Denver right now. There's a plus 2.5 currently over on DraftKings as my lock. For my dog, I feel like this might be the Jamal Murray game where he just like honestly takes over and has a really great game for the Denver Nuggets. So I think that I will parlay his points prop of over 19.5 with
Denver. Just gonna double down on Denver.
Yeah, I think I'll just do that. Money line.
You made it sound like you were gonna go for 25+. That's why I was wondering.
Yeah, because I feel like he hasn't really done it to get over 25 points, and they may just not even need it if Jokic goes off. But I think he's good for 20 here tonight, and then we parlay that with the money line for the Denver Nuggets. Let me quickly pull that up here. So I have to go to the same game parlay section. So, all right. So let me close this out. All right. So Denver money line plus 110 with Jamal Murray over 19.5 will get you to plus 264 for here tonight. So Jamal Murray to score at least 20, and then Denver Nuggets on the money line plus 264 to get it done. All right, Scott, let's do our Underdog fantasy entry here for tonight. Again, go to underdogfantasy.com. Make sure you guys use that promo code NBASGPN. You'll get a special pick and then a bonus cash offer of up to $250 for new account users. Again, make sure you guys use that promo code NBASGPN. All right, Scott, where do we want to go?
So for starters, you mentioned Murray points. So you want to just take the 19.5?
Yeah,
the number does feel pretty low.
Yeah. Let me go to the pick'em section here on Underdog. Yeah. All right. So we'll go higher on Jamal Murray. Excuse me, 19.5 points. Where else do we want to go?
Do you want Jokic RA potentially, or no?
It's
It's at 20 and a
this-
half.
Yeah. Yeah, I like it.
Unless you prefer points. What do you prefer for Joker? 29.5 points or the 20.5 rebounds and assists?
I think I trust him to have a good rebounding night and also dish out the basketball.
Okay.
Yeah, I would go with that. Let's go with a 20 and a half on the higher for him. Yeah, we'll throw that in there. Higher 20 and a half rebounds and assists for Nikola Jokic. And then you have anything for the Denver side we like?
You mean for the Minnesota side?
Oh, I'm sorry, Minnesota. Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there's anything I really like for Minnesota. Let me just see here. If you want to go for Jaden McDaniels blocks, he's had at least one block in 5 straight. So if you want to go for the half a block, that might be an option.
Let me see here. Jaden. It's half a steal. It's at 0.85. I mean, it's only one game, so you want to throw that in there?
It's up to you, unless you find something better that you like.
It gets us to 5x.
Sure, that's fine.
Yeah, we'll do that. I mean, so it's one game that we only have an option for, so we'll go with that. All right, so recap our underdog fantasy entry here. We'll go Jamal Murray, higher 19.5 points. Nikola Jokic, higher 20.5 rebounds and assists. And we'll go higher on Jaden McDaniels' block of half. So just to get one block. It is at 0.85, but like Scott mentioned, he's done it in what we said 5 straight there, Scott.
I'm sorry, I missed that. What did you say?
Jaden McDaniels on his blocks. How many straight games was it?
5.
All right. That $10 entry will get you a return of $51 here for the entry here tonight for Underdog Fantasy. Again, make sure you use that promo code NBA SGPN, and hopefully we can cash an entry here tonight.
I take it back, by the way. It's actually 6.
All right, there we go. 6 straight for Jaden McDaniels. All right, that's going to wrap it up for this edition of the NBA Gambling Podcast. Scott, anything else you want to mention before we get out of here?
No, not really. I had more to talk about for Oklahoma City, but I'll wait till the end of the series, honestly, because that's big picture stuff. But yeah, we're starting to get into the home stretch of these series. So we're starting to get some conference finals matchups flushed out. We know Boston's waiting for everyone else. Denver might be waiting as well. We might get some game 7s. We might not. So hopefully we get at least one, but not this one, because we have money on Denver. So
yeah, we do have money on Denver indeed. So yeah, hopefully Denver gets it done tonight. Put some money in our pockets for the Thursday night card. All right, that's going to wrap it up. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. So look out for us then for game 6 between the Pacers and the Knicks. Scott and Terrell will get you guys ready for that. Make sure you guys follow Scott on Twitter. That's at Reichel Radio. You can follow me there as well at SportsNerd824. More importantly, if you haven't already subscribed to the NBA Gambling Podcast YouTube channel, please go ahead and do so, and also leave us a rating and review for the podcast as well. All right, we'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Till then, good luck with your bets. Let's break these books off and let it ride.